This episode of Tekzilla is brought to you by Domain.com.
Hey, let's get our HD Nation on. If you've wondered whether an iPhone could be used as a display calibration tool, well, the good folks at the Imaging Science Foundation say, why not? And while it's not the most high-tech of HDTV calibration tools, let me show you, behold, the ISF HDTV Calibrator Grayscale Optical Comparator. Ah, isn't that a great name? This is it. It's an iPhone app that basically turns your iPhone 4's Retina screen into a set of grayscale reference cards. And here we're actually taking a look at the iTunes page for it.
Is it accurate? I mean, it's the ISF, which is like the calibration.
So there are your gray samples, a bright gray, a medium gray, and a dark gray. Here are then the controls that you'll use to adjust these grays to get them just where you want. And here are some of the optional controls. And yes, when it's all said and done, what you're seeing right there, these are actual captures from my phone showing the program in action. There are the 3 grayscale samples. There it is when you're doing the setup for it. It gives you some information. And the big thing really is, in order to use this program, you're going to need to properly calibrate these grayscale samples. Now, this requires some fine-tuning using something like a colorimeter and RGB color controls that are provided in the app itself. Now, this process is very similar to how you would adjust the white balance on an HDTV. And basically, I already took some measurements last night, and I went ahead and did the grayscale setup. My big concern really was to see if how consistent this is. And with that, we're going to use my trusty X-Rite i1 Pro spectroradiometer as enhanced and massaged by the good folks at SpectraCal. And doing the setup on this, and actually I'll do it using the CalMan software. Let me get the graphic out of the way here. And what we're looking at on the setup for this is basically I'm going to show you, here is the gamut of all colors within the encoded system. The triangle representing HDTV. Here's what we're going to pay attention to. If you can tell in this encode, it gets a little purple in this direction, red's over in here, green's up in here, blue's down here. Essentially what we're focusing on is that white square right there. And when we take measurements on the display, and I'm going to first take it at one of the bright whites, 90, what they call 90 IRE. Take a quick measurement, ta-da. And it puts up the point on the display itself here, hopefully. Oh, there it goes. And let me click on that. And then moving on to a measurement on the 60 IRE, see if it gets close there. Whoops, I actually just put it right in 70. And you can see the white point target was a little bit off. It's actually down toward blue a little bit, so I'd add a little bit of red to it in order to move it into where the target is. And those controls are provided on the app itself. So once you get it set up like that, you end up basically with a properly calibrated set of gray that you can then hold up next to the TV when it's showing gray and see if it's similar. Are your grays similar? Because if they're not, basically all colors are affected by that, and you're not seeing the picture as intended by the director or the producer, whoever put the film together. So there you go. It's $10, and if you have access to a nice colorimeter, you can actually produce on your iPhone a set of visual references for that wonderful color of D65 gray or white. It's simple. It's kind of crazy. I think for $10, I want a little bit more out of it. It would have been nice if you could take those measurements that you applied to that app and then apply that to the rest of the phone for all the video playback so that you know that your display is then calibrated. Otherwise, if I already have the colorimeter, why not just put the grayscale on the display and actually measure it and adjust it? That's a whole different discussion.
So interesting toy, not your favorite calibration tool.
No, it's nice to have a reference, and it's nice to have those adjustments to actually create a reference card so I don't have to carry around a gray card in my pocket.
But what happens if I'm using a cover or a case or a lens, or if the brightness goes up or the brightness goes down?
Yeah. It's still D65, and that's the important part. It's a specific shade of gray, and you can get it with that app if you want.
Alan V tweets in, Alan_V tweets in, at Robert Herron, could you do a segment on how to rip Blues and DVDs with subtitles using MakeMKV? Lots of foreign films in my collection. Thanks. So you create image files, actual ISO files for all of your DVDs and Blu-rays, right?
For that, yeah. Basically, I take the whole disc and I dump all that information off onto a single file, and that preserves all the information on the disc, including the extras, those idiotic anti-piracy warnings, and the trailers for movies that failed at the box office, of course. Those disc images also include all the subtitle information that any of my software players can take advantage of. Now, if you're encoding those files, you're encoding your movie into a more compressed format using, say, Handbrake. Handbrake actually has an interesting section about subtitles as well. They can accept subtitles from a variety of sources, but when you output them, you have two options here. You basically are going to hard burn it or soft subtitles. I can see no reason to actually use hard burning of subtitle information into the movie. That means you're actually encoding the words into the video stream itself. That's not the ideal. The better option would be something called soft subtitles, which essentially is a text file in a sense that the player program can access, and it's timed usually with time code to the movie itself, and then it pops up the text along the bottom of the screen. Now, the advantage of having the soft subtitles also is that usually, if you're doing any kind of text scaling on the screen, it's going to look better than it would be from, say, having it hard-coded as characters in the video stream as well. So Handbrake's soft subtitle option, that looks like the way to go. My question really for the HD Nation is, how are you preserving subtitles when you create the more compacted versions of your favorite foreign flicks? Are you using Handbrake, and if so, how are you doing exactly? Are you hard baking the text right into the video stream?
Right.
Or are you doing it, I think, in a better way where you preserve it separately so you can enable it if you want or not, and then the scaling part for the text so the text remains very legible? That to me would be more important. Please, let me know how you're doing it. Share that wisdom at hdnation@revision3.com, Tekzilla@revision3.com, or leave us a note on our Google Plus or Facebook pages. And we do read every email.
Well, we try.
We do.
We don't respond to every email.
No. Well,
Just had our sleeper
there are
move,
lots
we
of
can pull it off. Hey, one last before we go, we got a tweet from Abe1201 who says, at Factory Norton AutoMotion Plus, will most TVs with this capability display it on the box, letting you know it has this capability? Thanks.
oh yes. Samsung's trademark term,
Yeah.
AutoMotion Plus. LG has a similar tech. Everyone has a similar tech.
Right.
LG calls theirs True Motion. Sharp dubs theirs Aquo Motion. All of this was in response to basically one of plasma display's main
Right.
advantages, and that's motion resolution, or how fast things can move on the screen before the details start to blur. Look at a cool, if you're wondering about interpolation, what they call motion estimation and compensation, LCD screens that boast picture refresh rates of 120, 240, or even 480 times per second, they're doing this in one of two ways. They either insert what they call a virtual frame into the original video stream, or they're just duplicating the existing frames to achieve the desired screen refresh rate. Here's an example of using something called motion compensation estimation. Here you could see, granted, this is a graphic I pulled from the web. Isn't it beautiful? Here is at 60 hertz, your traditional TV, you're getting the original frame 1 and frame 2. Well, if you're going to double that up to 120, you need to stick something in the middle there. Now, one way of doing it would be to insert a black frame, or to smooth it out and to create a more smooth effect, you can actually take point A and point B, and then what would be in the middle, the computer can actually guess and recreate that virtual frame, inserting it. And it's really that insertion, that virtual frame insertion, that causes the smoothing effect that we see when we watch basically film-based content on newer LCDs.
Right.
So it's there. The one thing I really like about Samsung's way of doing it compared to all the other manufacturers I've looked at so far is that Samsung separates out how it processes video, like your 60 hertz content, compared to film, the 24 frame per second content.
Right.
And you can apply separate processing to each one, where you would want motion compensation estimation for your 60 hertz sports content because it doesn't really affect it. It actually makes it look okay. But for film, where you don't want it and you'd rather have it do a frame repeat mode to preserve the film look, the filmic quality, then Samsung actually provides a separate control that you can go in and customize. But by default, all of these TVs leave it enabled because it catches the eye and it improves motion resolution up to the level of a plasma screen. If you turn that feature off, you suddenly lose a lot of that motion performance, but you get that the normal look back, and something to consider. But hey, I think it's now time for some Blu-ray releases for the week of June 4th, 2012. This week's pick, Smokey and the Bandit. This is the 1977 classic that stars Burt Reynolds, Sally Field, and Jackie Gleason, and is being released region-free with a VC1 codec. Other releases worth noting are Yellow Submarine, The Sting, Safe House, Act of Valor, and Warner Brothers is releasing a few combo packs like The Departed with Goodfellas and The Aviator, and a combo pack with Natural Born Killers, and Any Given Sunday with JFK. Plus, Universal is re-releasing The Big Lebowski as part of their 100th year anniversary, which is always a good thing. And as always, check out our show notes at Tekzilla.com or HDNation.tv for the links to the rest of this week's Blu-ray releases. And now it's time to thank one of our sponsors.
If you're setting up a website, starting a new business, showcasing your portfolio, publishing your blog, you need a domain name, and domain.com is the best place to go for your next great idea. Now, seriously, if you need a new domain name, think about getting a .com. It's simple, it's easy, everybody knows what a .com is. It doesn't sound weird like some sort of .whatever, .who, .biz. .biz always sounds a little shifty. A .com is globally understood and immediately gives credibility to your website no matter what name you choose. Plus, if you want to invest in and sell domains, .coms have the highest aftermarket value. Find a new .com domain at domain.com. We on the show here like domain.com because they're affordable, reliable, easy to use, and don't support soul-crushing efforts out of Washington. Plus, domain.com's active social presence on Twitter at domain.com and great customer service make it a fun place to do business. You got a problem, you hit them on Twitter, you call the phone, it's good. Now, we got an awesome coupon code with a big 20% discount off domain.com's already low prices. Normally, domain.com has 15% discounts, but because they're back on Tekzilla, they're bumping up our coupon to 20% off, but it's for a limited time. Do us a favor, use the coupon code Tekzilla when you check out at domain.com. That's 20% off, folks. Big time savings. Don't forget, give the Tekzilla coupon some love and save yourself some money. When you think domain names, think domain.com, and that's a .com.